In this session, we will be dwelling on the life, times, and oeuvre of Akira Kurosawa, one of the three most important 20th century Japanese filmmakers. Kurosawa was born into a well-to-do family in 1910, and he passed on in 1998. Of the three masters of modern Japanese cinema, the foremost masters, Kurosawa lived the longest and was the recipient of the greatest recognition among these three masters in the West. In that sense, he was more successful than the other two, who came to be recognized only after their death. I will say a few sentences about the two other masters before going on to Kurosawa in order to provide a backdrop that I feel is necessary. Kenji Mizoguchi was the historical melodramatist of Japanese cinema. A melodramatist with socialist tendencies and in whose films suffering, sad but very strong women come to be given their due. Where Mizoguchi focused on women, Ozu was the poet chronicler of the bourgeois middle class. His camera is as much is on women as on men and children, all of them coming together to form the family. In sharp contrast to Mizoguchi, Kurosawa, his primary concern is with the samurai-type men, tall, strong, virile, masculine, and whose main concern in life seems to be to keep their honor and dignity intact, especially in times of crisis. Akira Kurosawa learnt a lot from his father, who was a modern-minded man and laid great store by liberal education. Akira also picked up a lot of wisdom at a young age from his class teachers. An elder brother who was very talented but destined to commit suicide in course of time also exerted an important influence on young Akira. Akira was a painter before entering the world of cinema. He entered the film industry in 1936, but he came to the notice of cinephiles in Japan in 1948 with his well-known film Drunken Angel, where we find Akira working with the legendary actor Toshiro Mifune for the first time. This was a combination, the director-actor combination, that became a part of the folklore of Kurosawa's cinema, oeuvre, his body of work. They were to work on 16 films together, some of them the finest in the history of world cinema. In 1951, Kurosawa's reputation reached the moon with Rashomon, which won the Golden Lion of St. Mark in Venice. Rashomon is the story of a woodcutter, and he goes through the woods, and then the story is about 4 different versions of an incident of crime. 4 sources telling the same story, and these are 4 varying versions. They do not tally. They do not match. Here, what is truth? What is the nature of truth? This is a question that Kurosawa is examining in his own distinctive, provocative style. Rashomon took Kurosawa's reputation to the 4 corners of the globe, and in a style that was both poetic and powerful, lyrical and lacerating. It was a highly visual style where the role of the camera and lighting is discussed even to this day. Akira Kurosawa made several important films in the samurai genre, such as The Seven Samurai, which is about 7 samurai warriors who come to the rescue of a village where the farmers are routinely looted and killed by bandits. Hollywood, which has always had an eye for subjects in which it discerns scope of quick returns, made a film called The Magnificent Seven, which was a horrible letdown, and it is a pity that the name of Seven Samurai is often taken whilst people talk about this Hollywood disaster. Other films in the samurai genre which consolidated Kurosawa's reputation was The Throne of Blood, which is a unique reworking of the Shakespearean tragedy Macbeth. In very important areas, Kurosawa moves away from the Shakespearean text and introduces elements that uplifts the film. Orson Welles did not like it, it is said, this reworking. But both Shakespearean scholars all over the world and important filmmakers all over the world have counted The Throne of Blood among the masterpieces converted from literature to cinema. Yojimbo, Sanjuro, these are other worthwhile films made by Kurosawa in the samurai genre. it would be wrong to say that this is the only genre where the genius of Kurosawa is to be seen. In fact, I personally feel that the later samurai epics made by Kurosawa, like Ran or Kagemusha, they're more spectacular, but they lack the vitality, the vibrancy of the earlier samurai masterpieces. Kagemusha won the highest award at Cannes, but it remains more an exhibition of cinematic fury, so to say, than a very deep insight into the human mind, human behavior, human psychology. These are areas where Kurosawa, like many of his contemporaries, he was a master. Two films by Kurosawa that I would like to dwell on because they are personal favorites are Redbeard and Ikiru. Ikiru was made in 1952. It is a departure from the samurai genre. It is about a retired official, government official, who discovers that he is stricken with cancer. And he decides to leave behind something good and beautiful for the deprived children of a deprived locality. He plans out and executes a nice little park where these children can play and enjoy themselves. A very deep, intense, philosophical film. Ikiru is not very widely discussed these days, but this is a film which has more than withstood the storms and stresses of time. It is unforgettable in its impact. It is psychological, it is humanistic, it is poetic, and it talks of people who are rarely to be found in our present diminished times. Redbeard is about an idealistic doctor who tries to do good to his patients, expecting nothing in return, and how the doctor, the elderly doctor, played by, again, Toshiro Mifune, how he changes the worldview and life's philosophy of a younger doctor who had initially shown disinterest in working away from the city among patients without pedigree. So these two films about two idealistic men, I think, are among the foremost gems of modern Japanese cinema and explain why Kurosawa is Kurosawa. In these two films, we also see the contrasting acting styles of two great Japanese actors, where T. Shimura in Ikiru is contemplative, meditative, quiet, and low profile. Toshiro Mifune in Redbeard is, in his own way, charismatic, moody at times, and can even be violent when forced to. So when we see these films, we get an idea also of the role played by Kurosawa's collaborators in giving flesh to the director's ideas about life and death, conflict and compromise, and all the other elements borrowed from life that elevate cinema into the engaging art form it is. In our country, there have been numerous important admirers of Kurosawa's works. In the Deep South, Aravindan is on record, the Malayali Otier Aravindan is on record how, when he came out of a screening of Rashomon in the 50s, he found himself in a dazed condition and decided that if possible, one day he would enter the world of cinema as a filmmaker. Rashomon was his primary inspiration. Satyajit Ray was known to be a great admirer and supporter of Kurosawa's work. Kurosawa, in his turn, also took great interest in Ray's body of work. They were close friends, and there was a bond of mutual appreciation between the two. So I will conclude saying this, that Japanese cinema has produced a long line of important artists, filmmakers. But if today there is a discussion on the cinema of Japan, inevitably the focus will be on these three men, Mizoguchi, Ozu, and Kurosawa. Very dissimilar at times, but what is more important, that the three are united by a common vision to bring to life on the screen different variations of our existence on earth. Kurosawa, like his peers, have passed into the history and folklore of the cinematic art form.